So what I'm going to show today is I'm going to show a brief excerpt of a classroom session.
That's the difference between being a subcontractor, a sole sourcing contractor, and a winning prime contractor. It's kind of like these Fed Gov. That's like the way a small business grows, if you will, in the Fed Gov. You got to cut your teeth so it's easy to get.
Welcome to my channel. My name is Dr. Curtis A. Merriweather Jr. Many of you guys know in 2020, I was named a game changer by the White House Policy Advisor for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And this year, I will receive the Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award. Now, the purpose of this channel is to educate entrepreneurs through education, consultation, and training support services. The goal here is to lower your learning curve and to accelerate your business profitability. Now, we do this by, number one, we want to share practical experience, lessons learned based on 28 years of progressive government contracting experience. Now, on the screen, you'll see my new Instagram handle. It has changed from when we first launched the channel. So definitely give me a follow on Instagram. I enjoy getting your comments and questions and DMs. Also, you got our teaching platform at 8-Figure Government Contract or 8figuregovcon.com, 8figuregovcon.com. The GovCon is short for government contracting. And if you want to go to our course store library, the URL is on the screen. Now, before I jump into our content for today, I want you to like, I want you to share, I want you to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be notified anytime we produce new content. Also, think about joining the channel. And when you join the channel, you'll get some additional perks and features. You'll get access to exclusive content. You'll get our videos before the rest of the general public receives videos. Now that we got that out of the way, what we're going to do today, I'm doing something a little different. I'm not going to produce new content. I want to give you a little bit of a peek preview in what we do in the 8-Figure government contracting community. So what I'm going to show today is I'm going to show a brief excerpt of a classroom session. Now, in the 8-Figure government contracting community, of course, we have 25 to 30 hours of on-demand content that you can consume, watch, rewatch at your leisure. You will have access to the platform for the lifetime of the platform. Another thing that we do in the community is I produce exclusive content just for the 8-Figure government contracting community that you will not see anywhere else, anywhere on social media or any of the free platforms like YouTube. And we also bring in special guests. So oftentimes my friends, industry veterans in the space, experts will come in, give our students access to premium content, information you won't find anywhere else, and open up the floor for Q&A so it can ask questions from the people who have been there, done that, or currently in the space, and just the pioneers and veterans in the space. So as we get ready to queue up this video, you're going to get a conversation with my great friend, Noah Leask, and you're going to capture a brief conversation. This is not the entire conversation. We did edit it out, the questions, but there were some questions. So you may see where there was just a conversation change. It was probably a question that was asked. This is not the entire session, but it's just a peek preview of that session and what the students in the 8-Figure government contracting community get through ownership. So on our platform, not only do you get the on-demand, not only do you get one-on-ones with me, not only do you get the group coaching, but you also get to talk to the best and brightest, some of the most successful folks in the industry. But I just want to give you a quick sneak peek preview of what it's like in a live session where we have a guest speaker. Hold on to your seat. You're going to get some content that's going to completely just knock your socks off. It's going to elevate your business. Listen very carefully to the conversation. I'm sure you'll find value. Again, this is not the whole conversation, but this is just a little bit to give you just to whet your appetite and what we're doing in the 8-Figure government contracting community. Okay, without further ado, let's roll the video. A quick intro of who Noah is. Noah is one of the Navy's first cyber warriors. Let me blow my thing up here. Played a critical role in providing the nation with cyber information signals and technology dominance. He created early warning threat detection systems and networks and designed and implemented the first of its kind mail sweeper, all while under extreme pressure during wartime operations. Noah was on the national Y2K critical manning list for the US and United Kingdom as the lead programmer for two vital worldwide mission critical systems. Leask then took his cyber expertise to the private sector and launched several successful infotech companies. He was the chief architect for a 10-year, $900 million program, consolidating a worldwide intelligence agency as the ISHPI CEO. ISHPI went on to score the unprecedented honor of being a 7-time consecutive Inc. 500, 5,000 fastest growing privately held company. His latest venture, Prime, was the preeminent software developer in the U.S. Southeast with deep expertise in software development, engineering, architecture, and data services, and analytics, cyber, and digital dominance, and AI. And I could keep going on and on and on. But I think you guys get the idea. So I want to welcome my friend, Noah Leask.
Hey, Curtis, thank you guys. Thank you so much. And thank you everybody who's online. And Curtis, you said you just want to hear a little bit about the story and any specific questions or anything you'd like to work on. Yeah.
Got a couple questions, but we can just we
You
can
sure?
just we can just go and the conversation can go wherever it leads. I know it's gonna be value added. So the
Okay.
question I was gonna ask is, what were you doing before you became a government contractor? Before
Oh,
this
before ISHPI.
thing,
So
yeah, before
before
issue.
ISHPI, right? My
Yes.
my primary Fed Gov company is ISHPI. I still have it. I think we're going on 17 years or so. And I have that, it's being run by other folks. I'm still CEO, but we have other folks in charge there. But before I was doing that, I was actually working at another Fed Gov company, but I just got out of the military. And when I'd gotten out, there wasn't a lot of focus on the mission. I'd done 10 and a half years in the US military in the Navy. So I didn't understand what it was like to just go sit at the computer and watch, people work. I actually had to do things. And so I was kind of decoupled from the government client who actually had the mission. So I was kind of hanging around other contractors on that job. I took another job at an agency and it actually got me deep into what they were doing, i.e. the mission. So sometimes, you get the wrong job, wrong position. And that's where I was first out of the military. And then Curtis, right after that, I found a better job actually sitting with the US government at the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. That's a lot. It's called NGA today. You guys may know Mr. Clapper, General Clapper. He actually started that agency and combined several agencies into one. But what happened there was it was a huge opportunity to have an impact. I mean, this is early 2000s. So I had a unique skill, Curtis, where I could code. And most of the other people around me were really great technologists, but they couldn't code. So when they broke something, they'd have to come to me to ask, well, is there any way we can code this to fix it? And you tend to become it's an opportunity to really it's like the middle linebacker on the team. You got to make all the tackles. And so I got lucky. I was set up so I could do that. And how I started the company was I went to work for a small business to fix a few things at DHHS. And I went ahead and started commuting a couple hours a day instead of going right down the road. And the NGA called me back and said, we need you back. So that was kind of a start of, well, wait a minute, if you're going to call me back, I don't want to do this for somebody else. Why don't I do this for me? And so, again, this is back in 2006. And I want to tell you, it's a unique environment. One, I'm not scared when it comes to technology to try it, especially if I'm not having to pay for it and they're asking you to fix it and they're paying you by the hour. It's almost like you can't, it's like you why would you say no? Well, that's back in the early 2000s. I want you to think about where technology was back then. I mean, today there's a process, there's ITIL, there's all these things, there's all these systems to do things. I had to write my own software at the time to do these things. So the fact that that could be done, I think, what really set me up to start the company. I did not want to stay in DC. I'm telling you, I did not want to stay. I wanted to live and work in Charleston. And when I moved to Charleston, I have a daughter with autism, and she needed more services, so she got them in Charleston. And I was not going to get paid. You know, Curtis, you're not going to get paid DC wages in Charleston. So I went ahead and went on my own. I called back, and I was able to start the company by jumping on a subcontract directly by a government client direction. And that's not necessarily uncommon if you it's bad if it's done in an everyday situation, but it's not uncommon when you have certain people that do things. So there was a bunch of software that I had written custom wise a couple of years before, and they were like, "Oh, we were trying to find you to come back and fix it," because they needed it upgraded. You see what I mean? So I got really lucky in that regard. And so, but that's what I was doing before. I mean, I came right out of the military after 9/11. I'd already been deployed for, almost, the military and the Navy. We're deployed all the time. And so I'd never, ever considered actually starting my own business until I went to work for that small company. And I realized that it really wasn't, I don't want to say it, for you to start your own small consulting firm really is not that hard. Anybody can start it. Getting paid and having somebody pay you to do work for them is the hard part. So it's actually pretty easy to start your own company. But what happened was it was because I was highly technical, and again and I managed to solve a bunch of problems that they needed. Other companies like Raytheon and Lockheed were telling them it wasn't possible. I was still very mission focused, so it was like, wait a minute, man, I can hobble this together with some MacGyver stuff, because that's the Navy never had any money. So we were always used to doing things without it. So that's sort of the mindset that I took into Ishby was, we're gonna just solve problems for you. We're not gonna be a problem. And the government clients, when you start a FedGov government or FedGov company, there's plenty of opportunities out there for other people to do the work. The government, like you said, Curtis, the other day, the government's really trying to figure out whether they trust you or not. Right? They want to make sure that their career isn't going to go under by giving you that contract.
Right.
That's exactly what the government's worried about. They want the path of least resistance. So I'm telling you what I did. We made it all about our employees first. Absolutely best benefit packages you could have back then. Again, this was 2006. There was some war profiteering, so rates were higher back then. This is before Obama came in and started cleaning it up. You remember? So that happens. It's normal. The war was over. We start cleaning things up. Well, one of the things I did, Curtis, is I went ahead and figured, if we were going to treat our employees really well, because they're going to be with the government, we're FedGov contractors. This isn't rocket science. I'm not going to see the government every day, but my employees are.
Yes.
I like them happy. I think it's a good idea to have them happy. So I did some FedGov contracting as a computer science guy. Computer science, remember that company? And then that other small one. And I saw a multi-contractor environment, and I could see there were some efficiencies. Everybody complained about the same thing. We're all at the different companies, but everybody's complaining about their pay raises, their benefits, and their management. Well, I took care of all that. I made sure I gave the best benefits we could. We paid 100%. I made sure that our managers knew what was going on with our people. They have kids, they have, spouse, I don't know, whatever, girlfriend. What are they going through? And then the other piece was that government piece where we made it easy for the government. We didn't make it difficult. When they wanted something, we did. I mean, so FedGov, Curtis, you can tell me, again, as a former government guy, I mean, the last thing you want is a problem contractor.
Absolutely. Getting rid of them.
And you guys call, and you will call and say, you would not believe what I just found. Call this guy and he'll solve your problems. And that's how some of the work we got was, because we were just solving problems. We weren't saying, and yeah, they gave us some of their hardest stuff, but it was fine. That's what you got to do as a small guy to get a start. You got to take on whatever they'll give you.
How did you grow?
So growth was hard.
Okay, talk about the growth. What I didn't tell you about Noah. Noah has grown I won't throw numbers out. Noah has grew a very big company. So you started off, you talked about it, you came out the military and you worked for a couple smalls. I know you went on contract when you first came out. I just happen to have some inside knowledge. But how did you grow from being on contract to hundreds of employees?
Check this out. So that was a difficult transition. My first years, I was so how this started. I need to go back a bit and say I was the very first employee and the very first engineer. So I went ahead and made myself the principal. I'm the one, right? Even though I'm not the best, but anyway, whatever. At the time, I was it. So I figured I'd be the man all the way around. Well, I was working time and material for the government. So if I didn't put my 40 in, I didn't get paid. So everything I did to build a business was nights and weekends. Can't do that stuff on government client. That is the biggest no-no on the planet. That and stealing secrets. So we don't do that shit. Anyway, so the I had to excuse me there. I lost my train of thought for a second.
No, you good.
The
You was working nights and weekends.
I apologize. Working nights and weekends. And
Yep.
so in 2007, we had won a couple at the end of 2007. We won a couple contracts that allowed us to grow. So we had actually became formal partners on contracts with General Dynamics and Accenture, and they were both separate, different contracts. We won them both, which was fantastic. We were excited to be growing because up to that point, I think we were 3 employees. Number one, I couldn't have health benefits until I had 2 employees. So that was kind of we went about 8 months without health benefits, which was quite a risk with 3 kids. One of them was tiny too at the time. It's a risk with any kids. But so we did those things. And what happened was I actually had to make a choice in 2008. So I started the company in late 2006. And Curtis, I had went on a contract where it was subcontractor best athlete hiring. 3 weeks.
I remember that.
3 weeks after I started the company and I figured I'd have a couple of employees going because I was good at best athlete, they canceled it. Because the 8A, it was an 8A and they were going to be over their numbers. So they had to say no more subcontractor hiring until the 8A is over 51% of the work share, government directed and all that stuff. So that actually delayed my growth, what I thought, by almost 18 months. So we won these 2 contracts. And unfortunately, being a small guy, and I was very well thought of at the agency. So the other government client in charge of the new contract wanted me pulled over. So I actually had a very dicey situation where I could have lost the contract I was on, which was my bread and butter. And I can't move over and hire another 12 people until I move over, right? Needless to say, that didn't end up happening. I moved over, did all that stuff. Well, 6 months later, Curtis, I made a decision, very brave decision. But I'm telling you, it was scary at the time. I left the contract. I left DC. I did it. I did it for 22 months. I'd had enough living in a basement, flying there every week on Monday morning, flying home on Friday nights. And that's when I actually grew. So there was a period where I was able to backfill myself. It wasn't wonderful in DC, but I'd hung on long enough for me to get some actual 8A sole sources. So I was able to get off client site and start working the Sumter contracting angle down here.
I remember that Sumter contract. Yep.
Bingo. And so that's when the growth happened. Okay. And that's one factor. So that's like 2008. Okay.
So prior to that 8A sole source, you were just subbing.
Subbing. Okay. Very risky. Great way to start, but you don't sleep great at night. So because the subs are always the first ones to get cut.
Of course.
Right. So but it's a great way to start. So I did that. It was primarily going into 2008, actually 2009, there was one sole source and everything else was subcontract. And it was all NGA subcontract too.
Which is another risk because now you got to work at one agency.
We're all at one agency. See what I mean?
Yeah.
When you're starting out, you'll take it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you keep telling yourself now, once you have some things, you have to write up there your next goal is to diversify, right? Right. So going into the next phase of growth actually happened in around 2011. Why? We went from I think 17 to 70 over that time frame.
You went from 17 employees to 70?
No, million in revenue.
Oh, 70 million.
Yeah, no, I had like 480 employees. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So what had happened is we realized in early 2010, and we had realized because we had some issues. Contracts, wartime contract funding goes up, goes down. You might get an 8A sole source for 3 years and you do 8 months worth of work and they say, thank you. We no longer need your services. It doesn't have anything to do with you. It has to do with that wartime funding was turned on, turned off. Okay. Now that's pretty bad for any company to lose revenue. And so we had lost some major contracts early in 2010. And we knew that limping along on the 8A sole source, directed sole source, and, subcontracting wasn't really getting us anywhere. So we took, it actually took us about 18 months to turn the ship, but we started in 2010 and we put ourselves in a position in September 2011 where we started winning a bunch of contracts. Like we won IDIQs, we won task orders, and we exploded. But we wouldn't have been ready to do that, a year earlier. If that makes sense. So there's some things, you almost can't go too fast sometimes, because you absolutely won't be ready. But that's when the next stage of growth happened. And that's how we've been operating ever since is, at that time, I think it was almost 98% of our work was prime at one time. I went overboard. It was great. I loved that, but that was it. That's how the growth really happened like that. And it kind of comes in phases, guys. I mean, remember, we can only buy or sell services the way they buy it, right? The customer buys it, the government buys it. A lot of times, you'll be winning all these contracts in the same like 3 months. And then the rest of the time you're running around trying to find other contracts to bid and whatnot. So that's kind of what happened at the end of 2011. We had won a bunch of IDIQs, and then all the task orders were coming out at the same time. So we actually exploded. We had a cash problem, which was actually, I look back on it, it was quite dangerous because I had $9,000, and in 11 days I had a $280,000 payroll. That was pretty crazy. So you start calling clients, what are you going to pay? Are you still paying on time? Because our line of credit was maxed out. When I say $9,000, I'm talking $9,000. That was it. So I was maxed out on everything, but it was good problems to have. We survived.
I remember going to Starbucks with you, and you were telling me like, Curtis, we have no money.
Done.
What do you mean you have no money? We have no money. Our line of credit is maxed. I was like,
it is, totally. How is that possible, right? And you're like, wait a minute, you just won all these contracts. Well, guess what? Remember, every time you win something in government, it typically takes you 18 months to get solvent on that position. Remember that, because every time you hire somebody, you got to put the money out. And by the time the government pays you in arrears, all that, it's about 18 months before you really start seeing that money. And what's really crazy is when you end a contract and or a task order is when you see all the money. That's when you see the profit, is at the end. So if you don't shut it down properly, you will eat every bit of profit hanging on to the team if you didn't keep it. That's another little gotcha I didn't realize. The investor stuff like
that's
that.
Good.
I'm the only investor, so I don't like when I do that. That's a bad move.
How did you fund the growth?
Well, we actually got lucky with a line of credit, and we had cash. So that was, I got lucky that we actually had a lot of cash. And then the way that we were winning contracts, it almost kind of staggered. So I was lucky to get through it. I actually didn't have to borrow. The money came in through DFAS.
Right.
And I was able to make payroll. That was the closest I ever came to not making it, though. That was close.
Not making payroll, me and you joke, you got a lot of these, internet government contractors who have no employees.
Yeah, right. They don't even know how to make payroll.
Right.
They're just consultant 1099s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, they sub out all the work. That's the new thing now. We want to sub out all the work. We don't
sub it out. Right. And again, I don't, that puts the government at stress because they don't know the subs. They want to, but it's hard enough for them to even really they got to know the prime,
right.
So yeah, it's so difficult for them. And then you're not really building a capability in a company. Right. You're just an outsourcing company, I guess. But yet the way the government works, you still get all those past performances, right? So, I guess it's a good way to do it, getting some performances early on. I can see that if it's legal, but man, I don't know. I don't, I like to hire my employees because you can, I know
you got more control.
Well, you can build a team.
Right.
You can do things with a great team. You can't do things with a bunch of mercenaries.
Right.
Yeah, it's just so it is. They're all looking for the next best job.
Right.
You know, I'm like, you know, so it's getting it. And when I'm trying to do software projects, you know, part of what the software itself or the data, whatever we're doing, is part of the excitement about coming aboard. You know, so you know, it's I try to have those projects so I don't have to hire people that just kind of sit in seats, and you know they get exposed quickly with me. You know, I thought you said you could write software, right? Bam! What do you mean? You know, you can't even boot up your computer. Well, you got to go. So it's you know, it's a tough industry. But the number one thing that did happen around there is that like right about the same time in 2012, because remember, cash flow problems always happen in arrears, 6 to 8 months later, depending on, especially in government, because of the way they do it. So our cash problem, we were growing and exploding in September 2011, and then you go to January of 2012, and there's no cash. Well, that's because we just hired like 90 people. You know what I mean? So we're paying them out of pocket and all that. So there's no shock. Now, during that time frame, I actually got rid of my finance guy. I guess I had a director of finance at the time. Funny true story. I go into his office and I'm just trying to ask him, you know, hey, if I go in the accounting system, it's all set up accrual, right? And he's, oh yeah. Now, what does that mean? That means that every bill that I expect to have this year, somehow that's accounted for in my system, right? Well, it was not. And I went in there, and none of the bills, the accounts payable, they were up on stickies around his mirror. Okay. Right. So we're information systems company, right? An accounting system is an information system, and my guy's using stickies. And so you can't get information out of your accounting system if you're not using it properly, i.e., it needs all the data. So
Right.
all the accounts payable data was missing, like the couple 100,000 I would owe my subs when I get the money in and all this other stuff. So I immediately had to fix my accounting system because it was not fully accrual based. That's the way that we operate. The software is always accrual. It's just the way that we were actually processing our payments, and we're simple. We're Fed Gov, man. We have people that go to work, and a lot of times it was firm fixed price, so we just charge firm fixed price. And so that's, you know, we're not having to do a bunch of time and material labor things. So it was easy. I was able to stay with QuickBooks, and we actually wrote a program around QuickBooks so it could be fully government contracting approved with DCAA. They actually, Curtis tried to tell us no. Remember Norton, Jim Norton? This Jim Norton, great guy. No, great guy. Ended up being, it started out dicey, but it ended up being good because later on they were like, wow, they've been telling people for years, my competitors, that they had to go out and buy a $500,000 to $1 million subscription. I didn't ever pay that price. See what I mean? I told them, I said, you guys are illegally giving me an advantage. Thank you. And he didn't understand that. He's government. He didn't get it.
Right.
You know, then he did later. He's like, I see what you're saying, dude. So that's another thing that I think that other people miss is, you know, just because you're in a certain industry and it's being done a certain way doesn't mean that there's not opportunities out there to set yourself apart. So our rates, Curtis, right? I didn't have to pay the premium, right? And so the rates were lower. It was easier, you
Oh,
know.
so you had a lower rap rate even back then.
Oh yeah. So yeah. So here's what I did. I lowered my rap rate to what I knew I would need, what I would be at as a competitive company. I didn't keep my rap rate back in the wartime like everybody else at a 2.20 or 2.8 or whatever. I mean, people were rapping a lot.
They were.
Everything and everything. And you're like, I didn't feel comfortable with that. That's just, it's sort of like, sorry about that, guys. I don't know why it's blowing me up. But it's sort of like, you know, if it don't feel comfortable, I don't do it. So what I did was when I went in and I talked to the government clients, I was telling them, you know, I'm going to deliver like world class, but I'm going to, you know, charge you as if we're not at war today. They loved it. The government loved it. We blew up like wildfire. We got somebody not price gouging over here, and
Right.
we're delivering. Yeah, and our employees were getting 100% medical and all that. Can't do that today. We're too big. There's a point where everything, you've heard this, everything returns to the mean. You've heard that.
Yes.
Well, government contracting, eventually you will turn to the mean, because just because of the way they do the wrap rates and they award contracts, if you try to give too many benefits that everybody else doesn't have, then you'll never win because your wrap rate will be too high. So you have to be very clever about how you give benefits to your employees, and all that other stuff. There's only so much you can do because, some of it is laid out by law. So you got to be careful with that too. But that's how the growth happened. The growth happened really with concerted effort and focus on becoming a prime contractor.
So that was your mission. Your mission, because we got some companies even still that do 100% sub.
And
Don't want to be prime.
Yeah, and that's a decision.
Yeah,
that's a decision. Look, I find that the folks that like to sub usually are usually prior government or military or something like that, and they've got a really good friend in the government. I never did. so
neither you or I.
You can't be protected as a sub unless you have a government client that says you will not cut my sub off your prime contract. And so if I can see, like Booz Allen had that on one of those contracts at NGA. General Dynamics won the contract. Booz Allen ran it. I had no relationship with Booz Allen, and they showed me the door. I'm telling you right now, it was ruthless, and they didn't care. And GD's like, oh, we're sorry. I said, you're my prime. We made the deal. Whatever. Everything changes after you win. I know that. Just so, like I said, it's who you know, and you got to deliver. So that's it. That's for sure.
You know what? I'm gonna hit a pain point, but I'm gonna ask anyway. Okay. How did you make sure as a sub you got work?
Ooh, man. Subs come a couple different ways, right? So when you're bidding a contract, you're going to get all these subs that come that may not be able to bid the contract, but they've got a little bit of work that's wrapped up in the contract you're trying to go for. So they'll try to join your team or join other teams. In fact, if it's an IDIQ and they're going to award 5 of them, some guys will be on 5 teams. If there's no exclusive clause by the government, why not? I mean, they're hedging their bets, So that's one way. So sometimes you get them through the bidding process. The other way is you're told, and or you got to go find your own. And when and again, subcontracting down here, I was lucky here, and I think in other areas they probably have the same thing. But when I was looking for a sub in Charleston, I would have went to the CDCA, Charleston Defense Contracting Association. It's an association in Charleston, probably of 600 to 1,000 government contractors, all the bigs and a bunch you've never heard of. And it's an industry and government partnership down here where they talk about the mission and all that. So, and what contracts are coming out. I would have went there. Because they would have known who. And a lot of times when you're looking for a certain sub, there's small business qualifications you need, like, for example, to be a service disabled veteran owned company or a woman owned, or, so we would ask specifically for those. Another way to get good subs is to call contracting officers. Just call a small business contracting officer and say, hey, or an advocate, do you know of any good small businesses that I should call about subcontracting opportunities? So as they talk to them all the time. Now, how do you keep your subs on track? Well, know your numbers. And that permeates through everything. Your project lead on that project that's managing the subs down to the penny. Yeah. That principal in charge of all those projects down to the penny. And it all matches up with the accounting system. Yeah. That's how you manage it, right? Because that project lead has to be on his subs. There's no one above that spot that knows what's going on. And it's a big project too. It could be that there's an engineering lead on whatever, but I mean, that's like financially, number one, never let them go over what they're supposed to burn, period, because they'll charge you. And then you're managing these things. The government is not a high dollar business related to profitability. It's a 6 to 8% business. It really is. And as you're small, you can get lucky and make 10 to 12%. But the larger you get, you start making 3 to 5%. So these Lockheed Martins and those guys are, they're working on those type of margins, and those are laws and numbers. The more you have, the more you can make. So that's like the cost plus contracts are really good, unfortunately, for that. The more people you have on that contract, the more you're making, because fee is based on just hours worked, So those contracts can end up going on long and long. They're great for us as contractors when we're doing software. They're low risk for us, but they're high risk for the government. If we take on the firm fixed price, that's risky for us software. Really risky, because we got to deliver. But I think I got off track here, Curtis. But
no,
anyway.
no. This was good. If you had to start over again today, so you've grown, you got hundreds of employees. If you were starting over today, what would you do? Give me 5 things you would do to get off the ground, and based on what you know today.
I would recreate the accounting environment for whatever it is today. I would put together some fantastic marketing, right? And I would, number 3, get on the road. That's what I would do.
And you say get on the road. I know what you mean. Well, what do you mean? I got some newbies.
I'm talking about, like, okay, so in the Southeast, I would pick a target-rich environment list. If you live in DC and you're starting a business, you ain't got to travel. You just got to drive around. I'm talking about, I would start with the small business advocates, the SBA. I talked to everybody I could talk to for a long time. And these contracting officers, remember, every time you go to a contracting officer or an ombudsman related to small business, or the SABU, I can't remember what those are
called. Then change
the
names. The SABU, the SBLO.
All the same stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
So these guys, every time you talk to them, leave a profile behind. Leave a piece of paper, everything on it that has anything to do with your company. Just a 1-pager. Always leave it behind. What happened to me was I ended up getting calls for sole source contracts. This is back in the sole source day, which was awesome because it grew us, just because I was out making phone calls and actually got up and went and saw contracting officers. You're not going to get it from just a phone call. But I went to Tampa, man. Next thing you know, I'm working in CENTCOM. Like 3 months later, they called me with one job, and it was, could you put HVACs in? Nope. Love you guys. No, can't do it. I'll do almost anything else. You want to buy? I'll buy the HVACs. But if you want them in, I ain't the guy. And then they called up about dry cleaning. No, not going to do that today.
So you said no
to dry cleaning. I don't have anywhere to dry clean.
No, I agree. No, we agree. Yeah. We agree, because you get new companies, they want to say yes to everything.
There's certain things. I'm pretty liberal, but not that liberal. You know what I mean? I can't dry. I don't know anything about dry cleaning. I don't have anywhere to do it. So, but the next one, they call up and said, hey, I need you probably know a lot about this. Do you know anything about information operations? I said, yes, I'll be down tomorrow. And I flew down, got that job. That's what I think. If it's a small and you're starting out, especially minority owned, going for 8A, get out, get in front. They are always looking for new companies to deliver. They're always looking for it, because remember, 8As are graduating all the time.
Yeah. But the contractor, this is what they tell me, Noah. No one calls me back.
What?
And when do people in the space there say no one called me back? What do you say to that?
Well, get up and go see them. They aren't supposed to call you back. They're the government. They're the client. So I went up. I never got a job by making a phone call. I got jobs by showing up and going and seeing them. So that's what I would do. If you want to be in the intel agencies,
right,
go to NSA and talk to their small business and do what they tell you to get going. Again, subcontracting, great way to get started in the agencies. One billet, subcontract, might cut your teeth. Get that one guy going back and forth, that girl back and forth to work, and then, hire another one, so yeah. Listen, this is not a passive sport. This is a sport like business. You got to get up and go. I think that Phil Ufkis of UEC, and they sold their company many years ago. They're a Fed government contractor as well. He could fly a plane. You want to talk about an advantage? He could get up and go to New Mexico and talk to a client tomorrow. I mean, just I couldn't. I had, I'll be out there as soon as I can. I got to get flights and everything. No, he jumped in planes many times to go talk to clients. They had a lot of Marine Corps clients, so he just fly to Quantico. Oh, I got to go to Quantico today. Now, I mean, that's powerful, being able to see your client. There's a lot of people that won't even go see their clients that are in the same town they live in. They're your clients, right? You don't have to be weird and, try to, get to know everything about them, but you have to give them respect. That's your client. So, and again, not all clients are the same. I know everybody likes to say that everybody's equal, but it's not. You got some great clients and you got other clients that don't pay. Listen, when the great clients are calling, the ones that don't pay don't get attention. That's just the way it is. So you'll eventually have clients that are like, that's a gold client, man. We got to do whatever we got to do. So, I mean, you don't ever want to treat a client bad. That's not my point. I'm saying when you're put between which client do I deal with first, you take care of the one who pays.
When it pays and pays.
There you go. That was 2010. We lost 68.5% of our revenue for that year in the first quarter of 2010. That was my first panic attack. We had to win work to recover because we already had the bills and everything. And what happened was, again, is the government just came in and said, hey, we're good to go. In 2 months, we're shutting the contract down. Great job, guys. We're going in a different direction. It's war. You know what I mean? And so I went to the SBA and said, is this legal? I mean, we didn't do anything wrong. We did a great job. We got a resounding success, but it was 2 contracts and it happened at the same time. So I want you to think about that. Here's this little $7 million a year company, which is phenomenal being 7 million. But then all of a sudden, 4.8 million is taken right out from under us. So it was a lot of work for us to recover that year. We actually finished only having slight loss, which is actually incredible if you think about the amount of work it took. Yeah. And so we did, and we stopped being a sub, right? And we stopped being a sole source. And we went into winning long-term contracts. That's the difference between being a subcontractor, a sole sourcing contractor, and a winning prime contractor. It's kind of like these Fed gov. That's like the way a small business grows, if you will, in the Fed gov. You got to cut your teeth so it's easy to get a subcontract. That's what all the government guys say. Why don't you try to get a subcontract and get a couple guys on, get some work going. And then eventually, if you're an 8A or service disabled vet and you're capable of getting a sole source prime contract, that's usually your next step. Like the government, they've done some subcontracting for a while. They qualify for this prime. Let's see if they can run a prime contract, because now it tests the small business's ability to manage a contract and all the things that go into managing contracts. Then you get your DFAS account. I mean, so think about the first time you become a prime, you have to go and get all the accounts that the government would have a prime normally have. So it's a lot of work. It's great. It's only one time. I mean, when you do it once, it's done. But that first time is a pretty big deal. That's why the government, these small business advocates recognize this as a natural progression for our company. Sometimes it goes faster. Some people start out with a prime contract. But they might have been like Curtis, who had some experience in the government. I wouldn't have been good with a prime. I knew government, but I didn't know government contract administration. I mean, Curtis did, because he saw the other side of it as a govie. I had none. I was a geek, came out of the military, just a geek, so I had to figure all this other stuff out. That answered your question?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Similar model. Small construction companies. I learned here at Charleston Joint Base Charleston. So there's a bunch of military around here, and they finally consolidated it all into these joint bases all over the US, right? So Charleston has a joint base. If you came down here They have, and Curtis, I don't know when it is, but they used to have twice a year where all of us can come and learn about how we could contract with the joint base. During those joint base conversations, they talk about construction a lot. And a lot of people will ask the question exactly like you said, what do I do? And they do exactly what the government, what Curtis told you they do. They're going to give you the point of contact for the prime contractor who won those contracts. And you got to go meet with those prime contractors and get yourself a subcontract on those contracts, right? That's what you need to do. And then you offer whatever it is you offer. Okay. So, why would they choose you over somebody else? Well, that's why you can't pick up the phone and you got to go talk to people. You got to make them want to buy your concrete from your sub, or you're, over buying concrete from Curtis's, you know? So I will tell you right now that if I was starting a construction company, and I've already thought about this, so you can have it, I would totally go after all the joint base contracts and try to get on at least as a sub. And then once I have a bunch of subcontracts on my little profile, I'll try to bring in my own job. So that's what I would do if it's construction.
No, absolutely. You sub till you can come a GC.
Yeah, it's big. Here's the thing: it's like you're starting a marathon, right? And you don't know how long the marathon's going to be. The marathon could be 5 miles, it could be 80. It depends on when you've done enough to grow enough. I mean, that's so some people explode in gov contracting, like Fed Gov. They've got a niche or a service or something that they want, and they just explode. Other folks, it takes a little longer, you know. So, and as far as goods and services, GSA, man, that's going to be, if you want to do standard goods and services, again, for that specific question, your GSA schedule is going to be what it is. That's your government service administration.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And the thing about
General Service Administration.
There you go, General Service Administration. So the thing is what's great about this is that you can sell all over the government. When you get a GSA contract, that's government wide. So a lot of times when you go in and talk to a government client, say it's in Indiana, U.S. Navy in Indiana, they're going to ask, oh, do you have a GSA schedule, whatever number, because they can use that to validate that you're a more mature company. So that's another thing you would get along that line after you subcontract. You start your subcontracting, and your government contracting officers and your prime contracting officers are going to ask you to prove your rates, right? And the first question they're going to say is, do you have a GSA Schedule 70 for IT? Okay. And if you have one already, then they don't have to validate rates. They just go get it from GSA. You see what I mean? So this is a part of your maturing process as a company. Your company has to mature on its own as a corporation, just like your employees do, just like you do as a CEO. So a part of your maturing is, I got a few more subcontracts. Man, I need to get this next certification. That's what you do. So, no, there's a reason. There's a reason Curtis has me on right now. I'm sure I'm here to shore something up. He's already told you guys. He's a genius. Curtis is a genius.
Hey, Noah, somebody asked the back channel question. I'm going to ask you, then we'll jump back to the rest of them. Somebody said,
I never met him.
They said, how do you introduce yourself as a small business to work under larger companies when introducing your small construction business via email?
Well, yes and no. Okay. So prime contractors, there's a couple different ways you could approach this. One way to approach this is government contracting officers and the government or the primes, they have to fill a certain amount of their contract with small business goals. Okay, so I'm a prime contractor, and I've got to issue 25% of this contract to small businesses. It has to be a combination of 8A, service disabled vet, woman owned, or whatever, according to the contract. This is exactly how it goes. 27% of all the government contracts go out to small business or all the small demographics like 8A and all the rest of that. Okay. So you need to make yourself the best small business. That way they can contract with you. Can you come up with a better rate structure? You're going to become the favorite subcontractor if you can beat everybody on rates. Am I wrong, Curtis? Right. If you can beat them, if you can beat everybody on rates and deliver, I won't give anybody else any work. Why? Right. So you got to come up with something. Like, that's what the struggle is. How would I do it? Well, again, it was a different time. But in my case, I was able to separate ISHB from a lot of the other government contractors who were being led by old people. And I'm Curtis. I did this to an admiral. He got up there and talked about how great his cyber company was, and it was awesome. I didn't have half the crap he had, but I got up and said, "Hey, do I look like I grew up in cyber, or does he? Let me tell you what I've actually done in cyber. His is all theory." Oh, was he mad? I said, "Hey, you're not my friend. We're in business. Care about you. Have a great day." I mean, I didn't do anything rude. We were doing a bake-off. It's so hard to get up. It was at a CDCA, by the way. It's so hard to get up and have to talk about your company after somebody else has done it. I've done it. It sucks. Yeah, we do all the same stuff they do. Curtis, we've done it. And you have to do it. And the government makes you do it. And by the time they do 10 of them, you're like, everybody's already talked about any good idea I had. It's the way it is. You pick up the phone, go see the people. It's who you know. This is going to be the big secret. You got to go win it. Your company and your intro is not going to win it. You are going to win it. The human being that's delivering the message is what the government's going to believe in.
Thanks.
That's it. So you got to put all the lipstick everywhere you're supposed to put it. You need to build a legit capability, whatever that is. And if that capability is I'm gonna deliver cement, fine, great, do it. But make sure it looks great. Don't look like everybody else. Get a domain name. Have a website. Don't do the I'm John Simmons at gmail.com with the government. That is so cheap. They can't stand that. That Curtis can tell you that now. You're not even trying. You know what I mean? I had guys that came into an 8A meeting one time, and he said, "Where's my contract?" And he slammed his hand on the table. I swear to God, it was in Fort Gordon, and I was like, "Man, I wish I'd have had a cigar just to sit back and watch what was about to happen." Like I just, because they were like, "What do you mean, sir?" And I'm just watched them deliver just because you're an 8A don't mean you get a contract. What? And he was mad. Oh, he's mad. He was mad. He came for a contract that day. You know what I mean? He thought they were giving out contracts. They were talking about the contracts coming up. He thought 8As were getting them that day. So anyway, you'll run into a lot of stuff like that. Don't be like that. It's not hard to set yourself apart from other small businesses. It really isn't. Because a lot of them don't take the time to have attention to detail. They're making phone calls and they're wondering why nobody's calling them back. See what I mean? Don't be like that.
Gotta go see them. That's actually my YouTube video for this week. I talked about them Gmail accounts.
Yeah, right?
And have a real corporate capability statement. I just shot it yesterday.
Hey, when a sub sends me one, I don't even bother. If it comes from Gmail, you're not legit. You're not even trying. Right. Spend the $25 to make a company. $5 a month to have an email. That's it. Please.
Hey, that's my YouTube video this week. I literally just shot that yesterday.
That's it. Curtis is a genius.
Hey, Maya, what's your question for Noah?